The moment it happened live on air, it went viral on social media within minutes. When Gavin Newsom called Caroline Levitt Trump's blonde toy, California's conservative population took to the streets. The CNN special broadcast had split screens on the left, California's charismatic Governor Gavin Newsom, and on the right, the Trump administration's youngest White House press secretary, Caroline Levitt. Anderson Cooper, with his usual professional demeanor, was moderating the program. Tonight we have Governor Newsom and Press Secretary Levitt with us to discuss California's future and the Trump administration's federal policies. He began. No one could have predicted how the next 20 minutes would become a turning point in American political history. Newsom smiled with his characteristic confidence. In his gray suit and blue tie, he embodied California's powerful leadership. The 54-year-old governor, widely considered a frontrunner for the 2028 presidential race, had agreed to this debate to showcase his political prowess against what he assumed would be an easy target, a 27-year-old woman from New Hampshire. Caroline Levitt, dressed in her signature navy blue blazer with a subtle American flag pin, sat composed despite knowing she was entering hostile territory. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a professional style, and her green eyes showed no hint of intimidation. She had faced down hostile reporters daily at the White House. One pompous governor wouldn't shake her. Governor Newsom, Cooper began, let's start with you. The Trump administration has proposed cutting federal funding to California over your sanctuary city policies. What's your response? Newsom leaned forward, his perfectly styled hair catching the studio lights. Anderson, what we're seeing from this administration is nothing short of authoritarian overreach. They send out their... He paused, glancing at Caroline with barely concealed disdain. Their spokespeople to defend the indefensible while real Americans suffer. Caroline's jaw tightened slightly, but she maintained her composure. She knew Newsom's type, all style, no substance, coasting on good looks and family connections. Mems Levitt, your response? Cooper prompted. Thank you, Anderson. Caroline began, her voice clear and steady. The Trump administration is simply enforcing federal law. If Governor Newsom wants federal funding, perhaps California should start cooperating with federal authorities instead of harboring criminal illegal aliens. Newsom laughed, a condescending sound that echoed through the studio. Criminal illegal aliens. Is that what they're teaching you to say at your little press briefings? Tell me, Miss Levitt, how long have you been out of college? 2 years. 3. I've been serving my country since I was 19, Governor. Caroline replied coolly. While you were inheriting your political career from your connected family, I was working my way up through merit and dedication. The governor's smile faltered for just a moment. Merit. Is that what we're calling it now when all? He gestured dismissively at her. When a young blonde gets handed one of the most powerful positions in government. Come on. We all know why Trump picked you. Cooper tried to interject. Governor, let's keep this professional. But Newsom was on a roll. No, Anderson. The American people deserve honesty. Look at her, she's Trump's blonde toy, a pretty face to distract from his disastrous policies. She probably spends more time on her Instagram than actually understanding policy. The words hung in the air like a poison cloud. Caroline's face flushed, but not with embarrassment, with controlled fury. In the control room, CNN producers were frantically gesturing, knowing they had just captured a moment that would define the broadcast. Governor Newsom. Caroline's voice was dangerously quiet. I'd like to share some facts with you and your California constituents watching tonight. While you've been playing politics with people's lives, I've been working 18-hour days defending policies that actually help Americans. Your state has the highest poverty rate in the nation when adjusted for cost of living. Your streets are littered with homeless encampments. Your citizens are fleeing to Texas and Florida by the hundreds of thousands. Newsom waved his hand dismissively. Typical MAGA talking points. This is what I mean, Anderson. They send out these spokesmodels who just repeat whatever Trump tweets. She doesn't understand the complexities of governing a state like California. I understand that your state has rolling blackouts while you lecture the rest of us about green energy. Caroline shot back. I understand that you shut down your state's economy while dining at the French Laundry. I understand that you're so out of touch with regular Americans that you think insulting a woman's appearance is acceptable political discourse. I'm not insulting your appearance. Newsom said with a smirk. I'm sure you're very popular on Fox News. But this is serious governance we're talking about, not a beauty pageant. Cooper attempted to regain control. Governor, with all due respect. No, let him continue. Caroline interrupted, her eyes blazing. Let Governor Newsom show America exactly who he is, a privileged, sexist elitist who thinks any woman in power must be there because of her looks. It's 2025, Governor, not 1955. Newsom's face reddened. Don't lecture me about sexism. I've appointed more women to positions of power than what? Then you've insulted on national television. Caroline leaned forward. You just called me Trump's blonde toy on CNN. Do you speak about Nancy Pelosi that way? Or is it just young conservative women you feel comfortable demeaning? The split screen showed the stark contrast. Newsom, fidgeting and defensive, and Caroline, poised and prosecutorial. Social media was exploding. Frau Blondetoy was trending within minutes, with thousands of tweets condemning Newsom's sexist remarks. Gavin Newsom just destroyed his 2028 chances in 30 seconds. Calling Caroline Levitt a blonde toy is disgusting. Sexist Gavin. Did Newsom really just say that on Lev TV? Caroline Levitt is destroying him right now. Face the end debate. California deserves better than this sexist governor. Caroline Levitt is showing more class in her pinky finger than Newsom has in his whole body. Back in the studio, Newsom tried to recover. Look, if I misspoke. Caroline's voice rose for the first time. You just reduced my entire career to my hair color and gender. You know what, Governor? I've kept quiet while people like you have attacked me for my age, my appearance, my faith. But I'm done being polite. You want to talk about toys. You're Sacramento's Ken doll. All plastic perfection with nothing underneath. Cooper's eyes widened. This was not going according to plan. Newsom's famous composure finally cracked. How dare you? How dare I what? Defend myself, fight back. I'm sorry if you expected me to sit here quietly while you insulted me. But I didn't become the youngest White House press secretary in history by being a pushover. You became press secretary because Trump likes having pretty young women around him. Newsom spat. Everyone knows it. The studio fell silent. Even Cooper seemed stunned by the directness of the attack. Caroline stood up slowly, her movement deliberate and controlled. Governor Newsom, I'm going to give you one chance to apologize. Not to me. I don't need your apology. But to every young woman watching who's been told she only succeeded because of her looks. To every female conservative who's been dismissed as a pretty face. To your own daughters, who deserve better than a father who judges women's worth by their appearance. Newsom laughed, but it sounded forced. Sit down, little girl. This is exactly what I mean. You can't handle real political discourse, so you throw a tantrum. Little girl. Caroline remained standing. I'm the White House press secretary. I face a hostile press corps every single day. I've negotiated with world leaders. I've shaped national policy. What have you done besides inherit a political dynasty and run California into the ground? California has the 5th largest economy in the world, which you inherited. You didn't build that. Just like you didn't earn your position, you were handed it by Democratic power brokers. At least I worked for mine. The control room was in chaos. The producer was shouting into Cooper's earpiece, but the anchor seemed frozen by the unfolding drama. Newsom stood up too, his face flushed with anger. You want to talk about earning positions? You're nothing but Trump's mouthpiece, a pretty puppet who... There it is again. Caroline pointed at him. You can't help yourself, can you? Pretty puppet, blonde toy, is this how you talk about women in your administration? I respect women who deserve respect. Who deserve it? And who decides that, Governor? You. Caroline's voice was like ice. Let me tell you something about respect. I've earned mine. Every brutal press conference, every 4 a.m. briefing, every policy I've had to defend against people like you who think I'm just a decoration. Social media was in meltdown. California conservatives who had long felt marginalized by Newsom's policies found their champion in the young press secretary. Faye California deserves respect began trending alongside Newsom's shame. In Sacramento, phones in the governor's office were ringing off the hook. His staff watched in horror as their boss imploded on national television. Chief of Staff Ann O'Leary was frantically texting Newsom to stop talking, but he had turned off his phone before the interview. You know what? Newsom said, his political instincts finally kicking in far too late. I think we've gotten off track. Oh no, Caroline interrupted. We're perfectly on track. America is seeing exactly who Gavin Newsom is. A sexist, elitist bully who thinks any woman who disagrees with him must be a bimbo. I never said bimbo. You said blonde toy. You said pretty puppet. You told me to sit down. Little girl, what's the difference? Cooper finally found his voice. Perhaps we should take a commercial break. No, both Caroline and Newsom said simultaneously. Caroline continued, Governor Newsom wants to be president. America deserves to see how he treats women he disagrees with. This isn't about me. It's about every woman who's been diminished, dismissed, and demeaned by powerful men who can't handle being challenged. You're being dramatic. Am I? Or am I finally saying what millions of women have wanted to say to men like you? You coast on your looks and family name while accusing me of the same thing. You've never had to prove yourself the way I have. You've never had to be twice as good to get half the credit. Newsom's phone, sitting on the desk, lit up with constant notifications. His campaign manager for his 2028 exploratory committee was calling repeatedly. Major donors were texting urgently. The damage was spreading like wildfire. Levitt, Cooper tried once more. Surely we can return to policy discussions. This is a policy discussion, Anderson, Caroline said firmly. The policy of how women are treated in politics. Governor Newsom just showed America that he believes conservative women are lesser than, that we're just pretty faces without real thoughts or capabilities. That's not just insulting to me. It's insulting to the millions of conservative women across America. In Orange County, traditionally conservative but trending purple, phones at Republican headquarters were ringing constantly. Women who had been on the fence about the Trump administration were now firmly in Caroline's camp. The young press secretary had become an unexpected hero. I think, Newsom said, trying to salvage something from the wreckage, that Ms. Levitt is trying to distract from the real issues. The real issue, Caroline cut him off, is that you are a hypocrite. You claim to champion women's rights while degrading women who disagree with you. You talk about equality while treating me like I'm not equal. You posture as progressive while exposing yourself as a sexist dinosaur. How dare you call me sexist? I've done more for women. You've done more to women, apparently. Tell me, Governor, how many other female political opponents have you dismissed as toys or puppets? Newsom opened his mouth, then closed it. His political instincts were screaming at him to stop talking, but his ego wouldn't let Caroline have the last word. You're twisting my words. I'm repeating your words. A Trump's blonde toy. That's what you called me. On national television, in 2025, and you want to be president. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Within minutes of the exchange, Newsom's own Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis tweeted, deeply disappointed in Gavin Newsom's sexist remarks toward press sec. This is not who we are as Californians. Women deserve better. Senator Dianne Feinstein's office released a statement. The governor's comments tonight were inappropriate and beneath the office he holds. Even some Democrats were distancing themselves. Representative Katie Porter tweeted, disagree with someone's politics all you want, but attacking a woman's credibility based on her appearance is unacceptable. Period. Back in the studio, Caroline delivered her final blow. Governor Newsom, I came here tonight to discuss policy. You turned it into personal attacks because you couldn't win on substance. You exposed yourself as someone who sees women as either allies to be used or enemies to be diminished. California deserves better. America deserves better. Are you finished with your little speech? Newsom asked, trying for dismissive but achieving only petulant. My little speech. Caroline smiled coldly. There you go again. Everything I do is little to you, isn't it? Little girl, little speech, little job. Well, this little girl just exposed you as a big fraud. Cooper jumped in desperately. We need to go to commercial. One more thing, Caroline said, looking directly into the camera. To every young woman watching who's been told she's just a pretty face, who's been dismissed because of her age or appearance, don't let them silence you. Don't let them diminish you. Fight back. Speak up. And never ever sit down when they tell you to. She gathered her papers and walked off the set, leaving Newsom standing there, mouth agape. The camera caught it all. The governor of California, potential presidential candidate, left speechless by the woman he'd dismissed as a toy. The commercial break couldn't save Newsom. Femblonde Toygate was trending worldwide. California Republican groups were organizing protests for the next morning. Women's groups across the political spectrum were condemning his remarks. When the show returned from commercial, Newsom was alone with Cooper, trying desperately to do damage control. "I want to clarify my earlier remarks." But it was too late. The clip was already everywhere. Remix videos were being created. Memes were spreading. The moment when Caroline stood up to him was being shared millions of times with captions like, "The moment Gavin Newsom's presidential dreams died," and "Watch a sexist get destroyed in real time." By the next morning, the California state capitol was surrounded by protesters. Women held signs reading, "Not your toy," "Blonde and brilliant," and "Newsom's sexism must go." Conservative women who had felt marginalized in California politics finally had their moment. Inside the Capitol, Newsom's staff was in crisis mode. Polling showed his approval rating among women had dropped 15 points overnight. His nascent presidential campaign was receiving calls from donors withdrawing support. He just couldn't help himself. One major Democratic donor told Politico he saw a young blonde conservative woman, and all his progressive values went out the window. "I can't support someone who talks to women that way." Caroline, meanwhile, was back at the White House conducting her regular press briefing. The room was packed with every major outlet present. "Before we begin," she said, "I want to address last night." Governor Newsom's comments were sexist and inappropriate, but they were also revealing. They showed that some politicians still believe women in power are merely decorative. That attitude has no place in modern America. A reporter raised her hand. "Do you think this will impact his presidential ambitions?" Caroline smiled slightly. "That's for the American people to decide. But I will say this: any man who calls a woman a toy because he's losing an argument probably isn't ready for the presidency." The briefing room erupted in questions, but Caroline had already moved on to policy matters, demonstrating the very competence Newsom had questioned. In California, the protests grew larger. Republican women who had been demoralized by years of Democratic dominance were energized. Caroline Levitt clubs began forming across the state. Young conservative women finally had a champion who fought back. Newsom tried to apologize at a hastily arranged press conference. "I regret if my words were taken out of context." Shouted a protester. "You called her a toy." "I was making a larger point about the Trump administration, but being sexist," another voice called out. The press conference devolved into chaos, with Newsom fleeing as protesters chanted, "Not your toy." By the end of the week, 3 California Democratic Assemblywomen had called for Newsom to apologize properly. His approval ratings continued to plummet. Political analysts were openly discussing whether he could survive until the next election. "He destroyed himself in 20 minutes, one CNN analyst observed. He revealed a side of himself that voters, especially women voters, found repulsive. Caroline Levitt didn't defeat him, he defeated himself. Trump, never one to miss an opportunity, tweeted. Gavin Newsom showed his true colors, a sexist hypocrite who can't handle strong women. Caroline Levitt destroyed him. California deserves better. The California Republican Party saw a surge in donations and volunteers. Women who had never been politically active were signing up to help. The state that had seemed impossibly blue suddenly looked purple. At a rally in Orange County, Caroline appeared to thunderous applause. "They thought they could dismiss us," she told the crowd of thousands. "They thought they could diminish us. They thought calling us toys and puppets would make us go away. They were wrong." The crowd roared approval. Signs reading "Blonde Toy Revolution" and "Caroline for California" dotted the audience. Meanwhile, Newsom's political career was in free fall. Major endorsements were withdrawn. Speaking engagements were canceled. The man who had been positioning himself as the future of the Democratic Party was now toxic. "It's the speed of the collapse that's stunning," a Democratic strategist admitted. "One moment of sexist arrogance undid years of careful positioning. He'll never recover from this." Caroline had won more than a debate. She had exposed the hypocrisy at the heart of politicians like Newsom who preached progressivism while practicing prejudice. She had given voice to millions of women who had been dismissed and diminished. And she had shown that fighting back works. At the White House, she continued her duties with renewed purpose. Every press briefing was watched by millions. Young women across America saw her as proof that they didn't have to accept being belittled. "The governor called me a toy," she said at one briefing. "But toys are played with and discarded. I'm still here." He's the one whose political career is broken. The reporters laughed. But it was more than a joke. It was a statement of defiance, a declaration that the old ways of dismissing women were over. Newsom would finish his term as governor, but his national ambitions were dead. Every time he appeared in public, protesters would show up with toy dolls and blonde wigs. His legacy wasn't the progressive champion he'd hoped to be, but the sexist who got destroyed by the woman he dismissed. California did rise up, just not the way anyone expected. Conservative women, energized by Caroline's example, began running for office in record numbers. The state that had seemed permanently blue began showing cracks of red, and Caroline Levitt, she became more than a press secretary. She became a symbol of resistance against casual sexism, a champion for women who refused to be silenced, and the woman who ended Gavin Newsom's presidential dreams with 3 words: "Don't call me toy." The moment that went viral in minutes changed American politics forever. It showed that in the modern era, sexism would no longer be tolerated, that women would fight back, and that even the most powerful men could fall if they revealed their true, ugly colors. As one political historian would later write, the Newsom-Levitt debate was a watershed moment. It marked the end of consequence, free sexism in politics, and the rise of a new generation of conservative women who refused to be marginalized. In trying to diminish Caroline Levitt, Gavin Newsom only elevated her and destroyed himself.